bit of an update on. I've done some maintenance work on the podcast stuff. I've been off the last couple days, so usually when I'm off for a couple days, I just sleep or watch HBO Max or something. I don't really get much done, but I was productive. I actually did some work on the website, and in regards to the maintenance part, I actually... Okay, so if you're listening to this on Spotify, you probably noticed that a few episodes had been missing. They never actually got posted. And that was because when I saved them, especially on the, before I paid for Audio Director and things became much easier. And I basically had to wing it on my phone and transfer it, and it was saved in the wrong format. Every episode was completely different the way I did it back then. And 3 of those episodes were uploaded in a format that Spotify didn't recognize. So they just weren't on there. They were everywhere else, but not Spotify. And so I contacted Spotify and I tried to see if they could fix it. And they said I would have to do it on my end. And it was an easy fix. I just didn't feel like doing it. I didn't have a lot of time to do it. I basically had to open the file in Audio Director, then save it immediately as an MP3, and then replace the audio in Podcastics. I didn't have time for that. Well, yesterday I did it. So those 3 episodes, which were episodes 15, 17, and 21, are now finally available on Spotify. The website, like I said, I went through and I did some work on that. I added more to it. It's still not where I want it to be, but it's a lot further along than it was. I added on Teepublic, I added a new design. I had a lot of people that really liked my Starry Night version of the logo, so I made that design available for purchase on the merch shop. So now I have 2 designs, the regular logo and the Starry Night logo. And finally on Podchaser, I had never actually accessed it from the website before. On the desktop version, I'd only accessed it from the mobile version of the website. And I went on the website yesterday and I realized something that I never noticed before. Is I claimed... Oh, there's the computer. I knew it wouldn't take long. Usually within the first 5 minutes it does this, and I cannot wait to get that fixed. Anyway, so when I first joined Podchaser, I was surprised to find that the Digressor was already listed on there somehow. I guess like when a podcast becomes public, it's automatically added to there. I don't know how it works, but I had to claim it, and I claimed it, and I did the email thing and verified it was me. So I claimed it, and it's on my account. But then I went on the desktop version, and it said creators, and I clicked on it, and it said, we don't know of any creators on this. You could change this by adding it yourself. And I was like, wait, what? I'm the creator. Shouldn't it already automatically add me? But no. So I clicked on it, and I typed in my name, and no results. I'm like, what? It says no creator found by this name. You can create one. So now then I had to create a creator account. So there's my personal account, the podcast account, and the creator account, all on the same account. Profile, my personal profile, the podcast profile, and the creator profile, all under one account. And it's just so confusing. It's like, why? But I got that situated, and yeah, I did some work on that. And so I basically did a lot of work, a lot of a lot of what I call maintenance work on the podcast that I hadn't really done yet. Normally I don't usually make the episode logo until after I recorded it. but I knew beforehand. Usually when I do an episode, I don't even know what I'm going to do. I'm like, hey, I'm going to do an episode, and then I start recording, and hey, I just thought of this topic 5 minutes ago. But yeah, I knew a couple days ago I was going to talk about Pixar. I had an idea for the logo. I knew it was going to take a while, so I actually made the logo yesterday. And sure enough, it took me well over an hour to do. And it's the most complicated logo I've ever made for an episode. I'm really happy with it. But yeah, anyway, when I started working on it, there was a new, not a new podcast, but new to me. I hadn't actually listened to it yet. There's a new podcast. His name slips my mind right now. I'm looking it up. Mask of Sanity. I started listening to that. I found that show a couple of days ago. Hadn't listened to it yet, but now I started listening to the first episode when I started working on the logo. And then the entire time I was working on the logo, when you see that logo, just know I was making that logo while listening to the first 2 episodes of Mask of Sanity. And both episodes, her show starts with a 2-parter over Robert Ben Rhodes, which is a very intense episode. So I highly recommend her show. It's really good. I'm just saying. Another shout out of a new podcast I'm listening to. It's really good. Anyway, I'm actually starting this recording late. Normally, I try to start recording at 11 or midnight. I try to get this done by now. But the problem was, I didn't want to start recording until there's a documentary that came out over 10 years ago called The Pixar Story. I wanted to watch it. It's on Netflix, but my subscription had expired because it ran out. It expired between paychecks, and so I had to wait for my paycheck to hit tonight. I paid Netflix, and then I watched it. My paycheck didn't. Usually, it hits in the middle of the afternoon. I didn't get paid until close to 11. So, yeah, as soon as it hit, I paid Netflix, watched it, and here I am. So yeah, so Pixar. I'm still not entirely sure how I'm going to do this. I was originally going to just talk about, I like these. I'm going to go down the list of Pixar movies and say this is the one I liked, this is the one I didn't like, and all that. But I also kind of want to go through the history of Pixar a little bit, because it does have an interesting story that I wasn't really aware of. That hang on, I got a message I have to read. Oh, I didn't know. Okay, so, anyway, so, I'm going to start with, I'm going to go to Wikipedia, because I don't remember the entirety, I don't know everyone's names. I'm just going to go Pixar. Okay, so something I was kind of lied to about is that I was told that Pixar was founded by Steve Jobs. That is not true. He was a major part of the start, but he didn't found it. There was 2 founders that co-founded by somebody, and I will see who is. Okay, founded by Edwin Catmull and L.V. Ray Smith. And I think they're both still involved with it. I don't know. But Steve Jobs, it was like an early investor. And it actually started out as like a part of Lucasfilm. George Lucas saw what these 2 were doing, and he was like, "Hey, I want part of that." And so, like, he let them do Like, the I'm distracted. Someone outside my door laughing, so I'm getting a little distracted. So like he basically hired them to do like they were part. Actually, here's the thing: the graphics group of Lucasfilm Computer Division from 1979 to 1986 was founded 42 years ago as a graphics group. And then they started as Pixar 34 years ago on February 3rd, 1986. And let's see where Steve Jobs comes into play here. Trying to see where I see Coppola. I see something. Eventually the group realized they needed to work on a real film studio. In order to reach their goal, Francis Ford Coppola invited Smith to his house for a 3-day media conference, where Coppola and George Lucas shared their visions for the future of digital movie making. So, Pixar started out as just a couple of guys. That was. I wish they would shut up. What are they doing out there? I don't know if this is picking them up. There's people outside my door making a ruckus. But anyway, John Lasseter, actually, he, in the documentary, said that, like, when he was little, he would see, hang on, I'm going to stop recording real fast. I'm going to see what's going on. Right, okay, I hope that's the end of that. It was really annoying. Anyway, so John Lasseter says in the documentary that when he was little, he was looking through those drawing books on like the Disney, like how to draw these characters books, and he was like, "Wait, you can make money while making cartoons? I want in on that." So ever since then, he had, it was his life goal to work with Disney making animation, and that was his passion. So when he got to Disney, he wanted to do he did work for Disney. Actually, I'm gonna go to his thing. I didn't memorize the entire movie, even though I probably should have. Okay, let's see. Early years. He was born in Hollywood. I did not know that. I don't think it said anything about that. Lasseter heard of the new character animation program at California Institute of the Arts, often abbreviated as CalArts, and decided to follow his dream of becoming an animator. His mother further encouraged him to take up a career in animation, and in 1975 he enrolled as a second student. Jerry Reese was the first in the CalArts character animation program, created by Disney animators Jack Hanna and T. Lasseter was taught by 3 members of Disney's 9 Old Men team of veteran animators: Eric Larson, Frank Thomas, and Ole Johnston. And his classmates included feature animators and directors like Brad Bird, John Musker, Henry Selick, Tim Burton, and Chris Buck. During his time there, he produced 2 animated shorts, Lady and the Lamp and Nightmare, which each won the Student Academy Award for animation. So he did work at Disney. It says here, first years at Disney. I'm like reading in my mind while trying not to read out loud. I'm supposed to be reading out loud. Upon graduating in 1979, Lasseter immediately obtained a job as an animator at Walt Disney Productions, mostly due to his success with Lady and the Lamp. To put this into perspective, the studio had reviewed approximately 10,000 portfolios in the late 1970s in search of talent, then selected about 150 candidates as apprentices, of which only 45 were kept on permanently. In the fall of 1979, Disney animator Mel Shaw told the Los Angeles Times that John's got an instinctive feel for character and movement and shows every indication of blossoming here at our studios. In time, he'll make a fine contribution. At that same time, Lasseter worked on a sequence titled The Emperor and the Nightingale, based on The Nightingale by Hans Christian Andersen, for a Disney project called Musicana. Musicana was never released, but eventually led to the development of Fantasia 2000. However, Lasseter soon realized something was missing. After 101 Dalmatians, which in his opinion was the film where Disney had reached its highest plateau, the studio had lost momentum and was criticized for often repeating itself without adding any new ideas or innovations. Between 1980 and 1981, he coincidentally came across some videotapes from one of the new computer graphics conferences, who showed some of the very beginnings of computer animation, primarily floating spheres and such, which he experienced as a revelation. But it wasn't until shortly after, when he was invited by his friends Jerry Reese and Bill Croyer, while working on Mickey's Christmas Carol, to come and see the first light cycle sequence for an upcoming film entitled Tron, featuring state-of-the-art computer-generated imagery (CGI). That he really saw the huge potential for this new technology in animation. Up to that time, the studio had used a multi-plane camera to add depth to its animation. Lasseter realized that computers could be used to make films with three-dimensional backgrounds where traditionally animated characters could interact and add a new level of visually stunning depth that had not been possible before. He knew adding dimension to animation had been a long-time dream of animators, going back to Walt Disney himself. Scroll down a little. Later, he and Glenn Keane talked about how great it would be to make an animated film where the background was computer animated. It then showed Keane the book The Brave Little Toaster by Thomas Disch, which he thought would be a good candidate for the film. Keane agreed, but first they decided to do a short test film to see how it worked out, and chose Where the Wild Things Are, a decision based on the fact that Disney had considered producing a feature based on the works of Maurice Sendak. Satisfied with the result, Lasseter, Keane, and executive Thomas L. Willite went on with the project, especially Lasseter, who dedicated himself to it, while Keane eventually went to work with The Great Mouse Detective, which, side note, I remember The Great Mouse Detective. It has a lot of computer animation in it, especially in the bell tower at the end. That's the first time I really ever noticed CG animation. Like, I don't know if I had seen CG animation before The Great Mouse Detective, but that's the first time I ever remember seeing CG animation in a film. Because I was a little kid, and because I knew that to make like all these animated films, they had to hand draw all of them, and so I got to that scene in the bell tower, and I was trying to think, like, they must be really good drawers that they can do that, but I didn't know until later it was CG. So basically, Disney didn't like the, trying to remember. I don't want to just read Wikipedia articles. I'm trying to remember what he said. Basically, Disney didn't like his idea of doing the CG animation and animation, because a lot of them were scared, because they thought, oh, if we switch to computer animation, then that means that traditional animation is dead, and we can't have that. So they basically fired him, which that led to him joining Pixar. So I actually let's see. In 1983, the first they did a test. It was the first computer animated short. It was actually it wasn't even credited to Pixar because technically Pixar didn't exist at the time. It said it was the Lucasfilm Graphics Group. That's what it's labeled as. It's a 1-minute short called "The Adventures of Andre and Wally B." And I watched it earlier. It's on Disney Plus, actually. All of these early Pixar films, shorts, they're all on Disney Plus, and I sat and I watched them all earlier, including Luxo Jr. But anyway, the plot, it's literally 4 lines long because it's a minute long short. The short involves a character named Andre awakening in the forest and being confronted by a pesky bee named Wally B. Andre tricks the bee into turning his back so that he can run away. Angered, Wally B chases Andre and eventually catches up to him, strikes with the stinger. A collision occurs off screen and a dizzy Wally B reappears with a bent stinger. Shortly thereafter, Wally B gets hit by Andre's tossed hat and as the last laugh for revenge. That's literally it. It was basically like a test to see if they could do it, and oh, here's something I didn't know. The title is a tribute to the 1981 film My Dinner with Andre, which I've never seen that, but yeah. Oh, here's another connection to My Dinner with Andre. It starred Andre Gregory and Wallace Shawn. And Wallace Shawn would later go on to voice Rex in the Toy Story franchise. So I never knew this guy's name until now. But like when it said he played Rex, I knew immediately who it was. Wallace Shawn is the guy from Princess Bride, the Inconceivable, and he's in My Favorite Martian and all of those. Yeah, he's very distinguishable, and most people I guess don't know his name. Wallace Shawn, I've got to remember that. Actually, I want to quick detour to see what all he's been in. His first film in his filmography is from 1979, Manhattan. I think that's a Woody Allen movie, or let's see. I saw a movie called Manhattan a long time ago. Oh, this is it. It is a Woody Allen movie. I did see it a long time ago. Diane Keaton's in it, Meryl Streep, all-star cast. And apparently Wallace Shawn is in it. I gotta keep saying his name because I'm gonna forget it eventually. Wait, what's he been in lately? Let's go down to the bottom. Timmy Failure, Mistakes Were Made. He was in Toy Story 4. Oh yeah, he's Rex. Da 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 da. Oh, there's a lot of shorts that he was in. I got a lot of Wikipedia articles in open. Released, and it is. Yep. Yeah. The Andre and Wally B is on Disney Plus. Okay. Where is the second short? I don't see it. Maybe it's going to skip it because I don't see it on here. Luxo Jr. is probably their most famous and important one because I don't see it. I don't see it on here. Yeah. But I did know something else that wow, they skip a lot of stuff because the first thing that Pixar ever did in a movie was actually not a Pixar movie. They did Luxo Jr. is way down here. Wow, they put it at the bottom of that section. Anyway, in Star Trek II: Wrath of Khan, there's this scene where they're looking at a screen and they're talking about Project Genesis, kind of like terraforming a moon or planet or something, and they couldn't do it with like practical effects, so they used, well, they weren't Pixar at the time, but the team that went on to become Pixar made that in the movie. And so that was like the first thing they ever did that made it into a movie. But the thing they focus on here is in the movie Young Sherlock Holmes. There was a night that was, it's the stained glass window night, and it's flat. It looks kind of cool too. And that was, honestly, that was actually probably more impressive than the Project Genesis, because like the stained glass window night, actually, like, it walks like right past the camera, and it like pans and you see it's flat, and it walks past the camera, you see behind it. So that's probably why they highlight that here. So in, it doesn't say, 1986 was when Steve Jobs, he was George Lucas couldn't maintain, he was forced to sell off Lucas Computer Graphics, by this time renamed the Pixar Graphics Group, founded by Smith and Catmull, with Lasseter as one of the founding employees. It was spun off as a separate corporation with Steve Jobs as its majority shareholder in 1986. Over the next 10 years, Pixar evolved from a computer company that did animation work on the side into an animation studio. Lasseter oversaw all of Pixar's films and associated projects with executive producer, as well as Toy Story. He also personally directed A Bug's Life, Toy Story 2, Cars, and Cars 2. And I want to look at the page for Luxo Jr. because I've known about it, but I'd never seen it until today. It's also on Disney Plus. And it's actually, how long is it? It is 2 minutes long. It's very simple. But honestly, considering how important it is to the Pixar's brand, I was surprised how simple and basic it was. But then you got to remember, it was their first real project, because there's that Andre one was like a test to see if they can do it. This was their first real project after Steve Jobs got on board, and he put a bunch of I think it was $5 million into Pixar, and so with that they made this, and you can see how it's still being used today in the Pixar brand, because the sound effects that Luxo Jr. makes, when it's jumping, or when it shakes, and all the sound effects that you see in the opening logo, he makes those sound effects in the short. And then the that ball was huge. And then there's the next one, Red's Dream, I think it's what it's called. It was the one after this, and even right away, Pixar has been known to use Easter eggs from their past stuff, and yeah, that was definitely they were doing that all the way back then, because in their second big short, I think it's called Red's Dream, where it's a unicycle, and it has a dream that it's in the circus, and there's a clown rating on it. And the circus floor is the Luxo ball with the red star, the inside of a yellow circle, inside of a blue circle. So I mean, and then you see in Tin Toy was another one of their shorts, and even in that it had the Luxo ball was in that too. So they were doing the Easter eggs all the way back then, before all of that. It's kind of cool, actually. Oh, there it is, all the way at the bottom, at Wrath of Khan. Genesis. There we go. Yeah, I'm already past that now. So, let's see. In 1983, Nolan Bushnell founded a new computer-guided animation studio called Cadabroscope as a subsidiary to his Chuck E. Cheese Pizza Time Theaters company, which was founded in 1977. Only one major project was made at the studio, an animated Christmas special for NBC starring Chuck E. Cheese and other PTT mascots, known as Chuck E. Cheese The Christmas That Almost Wasn't. Not seeing the relation to that independent company. Collaboration with Disney. Okay, so they wanted to make a movie, a full feature-length animated movie, animated movie. So what they did was the guy with Disney was like, "Hey, we want to make this movie," and so the first draft I saw, they actually got Tom Hanks to voice the first draft. And Woody was not very nice. It was like even Tom Hanks, they interviewed him, and it was like, this guy was a jerk. I didn't like voicing him, but he was unlikable. And yeah, like he was like yelling at everyone, like, "Slinky, get up here and get them off the bed." Like, if it wasn't for me, Andy wouldn't even play with you. Like, oh, this guy is a jerk. So Disney was like, "This isn't going anywhere. We don't like this at all." Because Disney wanted it, because it was a computer animated film, it wasn't for little kids. They wanted it to be gritty and all of that. So, but it didn't work out that way. So Disney was going to scrap it. So Pixar was like, "Oh wait, no, we can fix this," and then they scrapped it and started over and made it the movie that we all know and love now, called Toy Story. And there's a thing I like where they interviewed Steve Jobs in the movie. Let's see, list of Pixar films. Toy Story in '95. Okay, so there's something that Steve Jobs said that I really like. Oh wait, I just noticed this. They didn't say anything about this in the movie. The screenplay was written by several people, 4 people, but the name that stands out is Joss Whedon. I didn't know Joss Whedon had anything to do with Toy Story. Wow. Okay, that really shocks me. Anyway, there's something Steve Jobs says in the documentary, where he says that there's a thing with each company that, like, if they have a very successful first product, a lot of the times they'll be like, they won't know why it was successful, and they'll try to like overdo everything or try to repeat the same thing. And he said like the Apple II was Apple's first big success, and then Apple III was a flop. So he said most companies can't recover from that, and if you can recover from the second, if you can have a second successful thing, you're doing pretty good as a company or something like that. And so like they had a lot of pressure on them when they did A Bug's Life, and that was a hit. And they did Toy Story. Like the movie came out in the documentary came out in 2007, and like Cars had just come out, and so they were talking about how like they had 7 successful films in a row. They had 7 hits in a row, and they got to the they were like, no pressure or anything. So like the story of Pixar is still going, obviously, but like it's really interesting because they get showed all their offices, like their first offices, like it was tight and crowded, and they like barely had, like they were sharing computers and stuff, and like John Lasseter had to like sleep in his car, and like he had a house. They interviewed his wife, and it was like, okay, I'm really proud of you, but come home. But yeah, like, and then it showed like the new studio. After I think like Toy Story 2, they got the new studio they have now. It was big, plenty of room. Like everyone has their own office, and it was like awesome. It's cool seeing a company like that grow, and like you see it was interesting seeing like that Andre and the Wallaby. That short, like, is very simplistic. It's like, for the time it was groundbreaking, but like when I watched it, I was like, I had to keep in mind this was the 70s. They made this in the 80s, early 80s. This was like the very first one like this. But I was it was very, very primitive. And then you go from that to when they get money put behind it, with Steve Jobs coming on board, you get Luxo Jr. and it's still very primitive. And you look back at the first Toy Story movie, and everything's all like glossy, and I mean it's plastic. That's why they chose toys, because they're going to have a glossy finish because it's the early days of animation. And but then you look at like Toy Story 4, where like it looks live action at some points, like with that cat was stretching, and like all the backgrounds are like, I love the cinematography in Toy Story 4, the way it looks, like the lighting and everything. It looks, it's amazing seeing like the progress they've made between Toy Story and Toy Story 4. And like with each movie, they try to push what they do. And in the documentary, they were talking to Brad Bird, who directed The Incredibles, and he was saying that obviously at the time that he came on board, they had done Toy Story, A Bug's Life, Toy Story 2, Monsters Inc., and Finding Nemo. And so, like, there was a certain, Pixar movies had like a certain feel to them, and so he was like, "Oh, I know what to expect, what they want me to do," and they're pretty comfortable with what they're doing. But then he says he gets there, and they're like, "We want to shake things up. We don't want to do the same thing," and he was like, "No pressure or anything." So yeah, well, that's one thing I like about the like the Pixar films. Like I mean, yeah, there was a period of time where all their movies were sequels. Actually, let me scroll down to look at those. You got okay, maybe it wasn't as long as I thought, because there was Toy Story 3, Cars 2, Brave, Monsters University. So they had, in 4 years, they had 3 sequels. Well, they had 2 sequels and a prequel. And then, how many? Okay, let's see. There's been, what? Soul is their 23rd movie. That is incredible. Huh, no pun intended. I didn't even think about that. Okay, so out of, how many did I say? Out of 23 movies, let's see how many sequels there have been. Sequels or prequels. Toy Story 2. That's 1. Toy Story 3, Cars 2, Monsters University, that's 4. Finding Dory, Cars 3, Incredibles 2, Toy Story 4. I lost count. That was all of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's really not a lot of sequels. 8 out of 23. So I mean, there's a lot of people criticize Pixar for having a lot of sequels, but 8 out of 23 isn't bad at all. Let's see how many sequels they have coming up. Lightyear, which I don't consider that a sequel. It's supposed to be like the true story of the person who inspired the fictional Buzz Lightyear, the quote-unquote true story, because it's like in the Toy Story universe, there was a real person named Buzz Lightyear who was like so great that they turned him into a fictional character that we know as Buzz Lightyear. And that's the story they're going with, and it's going to be interesting. I can't wait to see it. The release date set for June 17th, 2022. And there's the upcoming films. There's 4 upcoming films. There's Luca, 2021, Turning Red 2022, Lightyear 2022, and then a TBA. They don't even have a name for it. So there's an untitled Pixar film coming, set to release June 16th, 2023. Director, screenwriter, story, and music, everything. It's TBA across the board on this one. So you don't have a name, don't have a director, don't have a screenwriter, don't have music, don't have anything, but we have a release date. And you know what? Pixar is so talented and they're so good. I'm sure it's going to be a good movie, whatever that one is. So, but now I'm going to start at the beginning and talk about the ones I've seen, the ones I liked, and I'm going to say now, I have seen all of them. Technically, there's one I never finished because it sucked that bad, and I think you know what it is. I'm going to work my way down. Toy Story. I've seen it, loved it. It's a classic. I'll rewatch it anytime. Bug's Life. It's great. I like it. I haven't seen it in forever. I'm probably the only person in the world who says this, but I want a Bug's Life sequel. I've been wanting one since they made Toy Story 2, and I realized, oh, they're going to make sequels. I've been waiting for a Bug's Life sequel. I know I'm probably weird, but I want a Bug's Life sequel. Toy Story 2, I saw that one in theaters. The first Pixar movie I saw in theaters. I liked it. I especially liked it. Came out around the New Year. I mean, the New Year, November 24th, 1999. Came out around the new millennium, like literally a month before, and there was a thing my uncle had recorded for us around the new millennium. There was a 24-hour marathon, I think, on Cartoon Network called Millennium. It was a 24-hour marathon of Looney Tunes, and he recorded like the whole thing on like multiple cassette tapes and gave them to us, and I'd watch them all the time. And there were always advertising Toy Story 2 on there, and so like when I think of Toy Story 2, I think of that Millennium tape. Monsters Inc. That one was great too. I really liked that one. I don't know if I'm right about this. I think it. Actually, I had to look. My first real experience with, music. It was like the opening has kind of like a jazz feel to it, and that was my first experience with anything like that. I don't know if it's officially jazz, but that's the first time I've ever experienced something like that, and it got me into that kind of music. But like I listen to it now, and I'm like, this isn't the same. Like I'm into more other things, but I like the music. I love the music in the Pixar films, especially like the intro music to Finding Nemo, which is actually the next movie. And Finding Nemo, all the advertisements, they advertise it as a comedy. It's just straight comedy. And then it has like the darkest intro ever. And then like it actually like now like and like the mom dies, and Marlin sees the one egg, and he's like, I've got you, Nemo. And then it like fades to black or fades to whatever, and then it has like the Disney Picture presents a Pixar film, and then it's like that. I love that, like something dramatic, and then it has the opening credits. Like that is dramatic, and I liked it. I like that. I don't know if I'm wording it right or if it makes sense. And like, yeah, it's weird. But I love the music. I especially love the music in Finding Nemo. And all these movies have great music. And I'm looking, and so far up until this one, they've all been Randy Newman. This one was Thomas Newman. Wait, is he related? I don't know. Is he related to Randy Newman? Alright, I'm actually going to see He's related to composer Alfred Newman. Oh, Randy Newman is his cousin. Huh. That is interesting. The more you know. I was gonna say I learn something new every day, but there's a lot I've learned today about Pixar. Like, I was gonna start recording and talk about all the stuff I already knew about Pixar, but in the process, I've learned a lot more about Pixar than I ever knew. Like, it wasn't founded by Steve Jobs. Just so you know. The Incredibles, I already talked about that one a little bit. That one, I always figured there would be a sequel, because, like, the way it ended on a cliffhanger. And I've always, like, I wanted a sequel. And then, like, I was already starting to give up hope on a Bug's Life sequel. And then they did an Incredibles sequel, like, 15 years later. And I'm like, a Bug's Life! Come on, a Bug's Life! And it, like, renewed my faith that there's going to be a Bug's Life sequel someday. Like, I'm probably the only person who thinks that. Like, I really, really want a Bug's Life sequel. But yeah, like, when they did I'll get to the Incredibles too. I was going to talk about that, but I'm going to wait until I get to that. Cars, that one I also saw in theaters. I really liked that one. That one actually came out around the time, like, my family and I, around the time that came out, we were moving to New Mexico. I talked about that in the Ghost Stories video. Around the time that movie came out, we were on a road trip because we were moving to New Mexico. So that's what I think about, because there's a road trip in the movie and we were on a road trip. So it's like this movie was made for us. And then, to me, in my mind, the first Pixar movie I didn't like was Ratatouille. It's not that I don't hate it. It has its moments. It's just, I watched it and I couldn't get into it, and I always forget it exists. Like, if I list Pixar movies, I always forget Ratatouille. Somebody has to be like, "What you mean? What about Ratatouille?" And I'm like, yes, that one too. And but they made up for it a year later, almost exactly a year later. Wow. These are almost annual. Because Ratatouille was released June 29th, 2007, and on June 27th, 2008, they released WALL-E, which is a really good Pixar movie, if you weren't aware. Which, I need to find, like, more adjectives or something. Or not I need to find more descriptive names. This one was good. This one was amazing. This one was good. This one was really good. The first Pixar movie that made me cry was released on May 29th, 2009. Up. Because, again, it was advertised as a comedy. And then in that opening scene, like, we meet Ellie. Briefly. Very briefly. And, okay, so actually, going back, everyone says that Jessie song in Toy Story 2 was the first time that they cried in a Pixar movie. But even as a kid, I felt like that scene was forced. Like, it was, like, they got Sarah McLachlan to sing it, and it was just so over the top. The whole time I was just rolling my eyes like, really, we're doing this? It just feels forced. Like, I can't feel sad on a forced sad scene, you know? Even now, like, I watch it, I'm like, alright, we're doing this. So no, I've never cried at that scene. But everyone else is like, that's the first time that Pixar ever tore me apart. No, I'll pass. Toy Story 3, which, okay, so it feels like, okay, so Toy Story was released November 22nd, 1995. Toy Story 2 was released 4 years later on November 24th, 1999. Toy Story 3 was released 11 years later on June 18th, 2010. It feels like, okay, it felt like, obviously, it felt like forever between Toy Story 2 and Toy Story 3 because it was. But, like, it felt like a few years had passed between Toy Story 3 and Toy Story 4. Like, and they would announce Toy Story 4. It's like, didn't they just release Toy Story 4? Toy Story 3? No, that one released June 21st, 2019. It's almost as much time between Toy Story 2 and 3 as it was between 3 and 4. And I'm like, what? That doesn't make any sense. It's like time sped up or something. But yeah, like, Toy Story ended perfectly on Toy Story 3. There was really no need to make a Toy Story 4, but they did, and it was amazing. I love all 4 Toy Story films. And I do have a theory on that, but I will come back to it after I'm done with the list. Cars 2, this is the one I never finished. Because it was so boring, so pointless, so needlessly made. I was so bored. And the moment, I actually remember the moment I turned it off. Because there's a J-pop group, a Japanese pop group that I really love. They're my favorite. I listen to them all the time. They're called Perfume. And there was a song of theirs called Polyrhythm that was going to be in the film. They had posted about it, and like the J-pop community was excited that, you know, this J-pop song was going to be in a Pixar film. And it was one of my favorite songs. And I was waiting for that scene. I was so excited. And it got to, like, up to that point, the movie was so boring. It's like, alright, the only thing I have to look forward to is this song. And I finally heard it. I almost missed it. They were in like a bar or a club or something, and it was playing off in the background. You could barely hear it. And it was one of my favorite songs, and I didn't even recognize it at first. And it was like, I caught a few notes, and I'm like, wait, is that it? I could barely hear it. It's so low. And like everyone was talking over it, and that's when I was like, okay, yeah, no, I'm turning this off. So yeah, I've never finished Cars 2. So what's funny is wait, what is it? The next film is Brave. One of my best friends, she is Scottish, and we're still close. We talk frequently, but we used to talk like every single day, on Skype and everything back in 2012. And so like her accent was really thick. It still is. And we'd be in a group chat. I would have to translate because I talked to her so much. I could translate her thick Scottish accent. And then this movie came out while we were like really close, and so Brave naturally has always reminded me of her. And so we'd always make jokes. I'd call her Merida, and she never minded. She never got upset. I always kept thinking she'd be like, "Don't call me that," or I can't do the accent. But no, like she liked it. She especially liked that they actually cast a Scottish actress in the role, because usually, a lot of times when they, especially Disney and like these big movie studios, when they try to get somebody from they don't get Scottish people, they get an American to do a Scottish accent, and it goes down horribly. So she was really happy they actually got Scottish actors. That was followed by Monsters University, which I didn't hate it. I really liked it, but they could have not made it, and I wouldn't have minded. But like I said, there's only 2 Pixar movies I don't like. First one is Cars 2, and the second one I didn't like is coming up. I did finish the second one though. So Inside Out was a really good one. That one, I love the jokes behind that. Toy Story. What if toys had feelings? A Bug's Life. What if bugs had feelings? Finding Nemo. What if fish had feelings? Cars. What if cars had feelings? Inside Out. What if feelings had feelings? And it was really smart. I've known that Pixar had put out smart films, but this was the first one I actually considered to be really deep, because Joy was the protagonist and the antagonist, at the same time. Like, she was wanting everyone to be happy, happy, happy all the time, no matter what. Happy. You've got to be happy. And to the point where she is starting to ruin everything. And like, yeah. But then, like, sadness actually stepped in at one point. And that's what... I forgot the girl's name. Ah, crap. What was her name? I want to see... Riley. Like, there's a scene where, like, sadness takes over, and that's what Riley needs, and that's when she starts to improve it. But Joy comes on, and... Wait, I'm on the thing, and there's a section called Lawsuit. On June 20th, 2017, Denise Daniels, a child psychologist from Minnesota, filed a lawsuit against Disney and Pixar for breach of contract. Daniels had been working on a creative project, The Moodsters, with a theme very similar to Inside Out, and had discussed projects of a TV production with Disney and Pixar executives, including with the film's eventual director, Pete Docter. Daniels claims that she presented in detail her idea for 5 color-coded characters representing happiness, sadness, anger, love, and fear, who would live in an abstract world within a child. The discussions were held between 2006 and 2009, and Daniels argued that they carried an implied contract for her to be compensated if the ideas were used by Disney. On January 31st, 2018, her suit was dismissed by Judge Philip Gutierrez, who ruled that since Daniels had released materials related to the project publicly at the time of the conversations, there was no grounds for an implied contract between Disney and Daniels. Daniels appealed to the Ninth Circuit, who upheld the district court's ruling on March 2020 that Pixar's film did not infringe on Daniels' characters. The decision stated that simply creating color-keyed characters based on emotions was not enough to be copyrighted. That is true. You cannot copyright an idea. I found that out a while back. Not from like personal experience. I was like reading something and somebody tried to sue something over something, and yeah. Anyway, but instead would have required these characters to carry similar characterization elements that they had previously determined in Marvel Comics versus Towel in 2017. Anyway, yeah, there was a lawsuit. I did not know that. Anyway, where was I? Where's the list? There's the list. Inside Out. And with that, we find ourselves at The Good Dinosaur, which is the second Pixar film I didn't like. I at least finished this one, so that makes it slightly better than Cars 2. But from what I hear, and understand from like YouTube channels like the Super Carlin Brothers and Seamus Gordon. I'm a fan of his, I swear. Samish. You know who I mean. He was on my favorite YouTubers list. Anyway, according to like channels like them and like other people, the 2 Pixar films I don't like and nobody likes. So like I don't feel like it's not like I'm saying Finding Nemo's the worst movie ever. Yeah, I'm not saying that. I love Finding Nemo. So it's like it's popular consensus to say those 2 movies aren't any good. Which is funny that once again, I named a random movie and it was next. Technically. Finding Dory. That one was funny because I joked about that long ago. And I said, like, after Finding Nemo, it felt like there should be a sequel. And I jokingly said, why it should be called like Finding Dory, and everyone laughed. And I was like, Dory's stupid. But no, they actually made it, and it was actually really good. It's not better than the first one, but like it doesn't have to be. Like I hate when people say it's not better than the first one. It sucks. No, it was still really funny. I loved that they tied the 2 movies together. Like we find out what she was doing when she ran into Marlin. The film starts with her, like, with all of that, like, just keeps swimming, and then, yeah, that's what she was doing. She was trying to find her parents when she ran into Marlin. And, yeah, and she finds her family, and it's adorable. I actually remember, the first time I ever remember seeing Ellen DeGeneres cry. It was this little girl on her show. I don't remember what she went through. It might have been like some health thing, or she was actually in the water or something, but she survived something traumatic. And Ellen asked her, like, how did she manage to survive that? And she said, there was a little fish that told me to just keep swimming. And Ellen started crying, which I thought that was adorable. And then that's followed by Cars 3, which, when they announced Cars 3, and I was telling everyone, Cars 3 would only be worth it if there's a character called Vlad the Impala. There wasn't, but it was still good. Like, when they released the first trailer, it was like really dark. Like, the color grade was really dark, because the first two was really bright and colorful, and then the first teaser for Cars 3 was really dark, and then it shows like a very traumatic looking wreck, and then it fades to black and says everything will change, or something like that. And I'm like, okay, Pixar, you have my attention. But then, like, you watch the scene in the movie and it's played for laughs. Like, it's like, ooh, it's kind of like, it's like it was dark in the trailer, but then you watch it in the actual movie and it's kind of funny. And it's like, well, why did you make it like oh, I see what you did. But then the movie was actually really good. Like, you don't even have to have seen Cars 2, which I loved. I was afraid, because, like, I waited to watch Cars 3. I waited till other people had seen it, because I was like, do I have to finish Cars 2 to enjoy this? And they say, like, all my friends were like, no, they completely ignored Cars 2. And I was like, oh, thank God, because I didn't want to have to sit through Cars 2 just to enjoy Cars 3. So I watched Cars 3 and I loved it. It was actually, out of the 3 Cars films, Cars 3 is actually my favorite. And then that's followed by Coco. Okay, so Pixar's known for making people cry, but, like, Coco really got me. I actually have a picture that I posted on Snapchat as my story, and I saved it. It was like, I had, like, my face was covered in tears with had the line, the black line with the text in it. It says, just watch Coco, why do you always do this to me, Pixar, or something like that. And I send it to people sometimes, and they're like, you're heartless. And I'm like, no, I have a heart. Look, I cried at Coco. And then that movie was followed by, I was looking up Brad Bird's name. I was going to say that movie was followed by Brad Bird. Incredibles 2. Alright, now I will say what I was going to say earlier. I was hoping that since it'd been 15 years, the characters would age up 15 years, so the kids would be adults, and Jack would be older. But no. It literally takes place right where the cliffhanger of the first one ends. They finished that little that battle they started, and it's fine. I like that they did that. It ended up being really good. I liked it a lot. I actually think I like Incredibles 2 more than the first one. I don't know, like, my mood changed. I go back and forth on that. I like both of them, but sometimes I'm like, the first one's better, and then I'm like, the second one's better. I don't know. They're both really good. And that's followed by Toy Story 4, which... Okay, so Toy Story 3 was a perfect way to end the series. It should have just ended there. But then they did Toy Story 4, and like everyone else, I was just like, why? Why are they doing this? But then I actually watched it in theater. I went to the theaters and saw it the day it came out, because I was curious. I wanted to see it. And I'm glad I did. It was really good. really emotional, especially the end when Buzz says to infinity, and then Woody says and beyond. Which, think about that. Did Woody just randomly say and beyond, or did they both say to infinity and beyond at the same time, and we only saw one half of each? I don't know, but like when that moment when Woody and Bo realize that they could be together, and like Woody doesn't have to go back with them, and they run into each other's arms. I was like, oh no, why are you doing this, Pixar? It's like it took 4 movies to get to this point. 20 years, like more, almost 30 years or 25 years, a long time of them. Will they or won't they? And she wasn't even in the last movie, so they definitely weren't. But now they are. And Pixar. And at the beginning of this year, no, it's not last year anymore. At the beginning of last year, they released Onward, which was a very different film for them. Like, it was a fantasy one, which that's what another thing I love about Pixar. They are willing to try new things. Yes, they do a lot of sequels. They just had a bunch of sequels in a row. They did Cars 3, Coco original, Incredibles 2, Toy Story 4. They just did a bunch of sequels, and then they did probably their most ambitious one ever yet up to that point. It was a fantasy film on a whole different planet, and it was amazing. And like there was a lot of times where I thought, oh, I know what's going to happen. This is going to be a cliche ending. But it didn't end at all the way I thought it was going to end. I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, when it got to the end, I thought I knew what was going to happen. Like they were building to something. It didn't go the way you thought it was going to go. And it actually ended up better than you're thinking it's going to go. And then their most recent film that came out a little over a month ago. It was a month and 4 days ago. Soul. When they announced it, I was like, oh, come on, Pixar. You're just going deeper and deeper, aren't you? It's a movie about death and what happens to your soul when you die. And I was like, oh, come on. Now they're not even trying to not be... I don't know where I was going with that sentence. But, like, see, with movies like Inside Out, it's like, okay, they were trying to be deep, and they ended up being deep. But with Soul, it's like, I automatically didn't like the concept, because I thought I knew what they were going to... I don't know, like, I thought I knew what they were going to do, but I didn't at the same time, and I was just really confused. I'm like, why would Pixar... It's a kid's film, why would they do this? But then I watched it, and it was actually really good. It was like, it was not at all what I thought it was going to be. I'm now that I've seen it and I know what it is, I don't remember what I thought it. That's why I'm struggling. I don't remember what I thought it was going to be, and it wasn't at all. So, but it's something completely different, and I really liked it. And so, out of 23 movies, there's only 2 I didn't like. That's not bad, Pixar. So you get Marvel Cinematic Universe. They have, I think, the same amount of movies. There's only 1 movie. There's 2. There's 2 movies in the MCU that has the same amount of movies that I don't like. Which actually, I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna talk about that right now, because I'm thinking about doing an MCU episode. I've been thinking about it, but I'm waiting. I was gonna do it right before WandaVision, but now WandaVision's out, and I wanted to talk about it, but I don't want to talk about it while it's still going, so I'm gonna wait till after WandaVision. But then I don't know what's coming out, because it ties directly into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and so like there might not be a part where what the heck. Okay, so I'm still on the page with Soul and everything, and I'm looking at music, and there's three names, and the standout name that I didn't notice. One of the people that worked on, one of the people that did the music for the movie Soul was Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails. Like, how did I miss that? I didn't even know that. I love Nine Inch Nails. I would never imagine Nine Inch Nails doing a Pixar movie. Like, what? 2020 was a weird year. Well, technically, it wasn't Nine Inch Nails that did the Pixar movie. It was Trent Reznor. Nine Inch Nails is a band. Trent Reznor is a person. So yeah. But yeah, that's Pixar. Actually, I want to look over here. I'm not entirely sure about this. I want to talk about. Okay, with John Lasseter. I've been hearing a lot of things about allegations of sexual misconduct and exit from Disney Pixar. Yes, I was reading a header of a section. There's 4 lines. I'm just going to read it. In November 2017, Lasseter took a 6-month leave of absence after acknowledging allegations of workplace sexual misconduct that he described as missteps with the employees in a memo to staff. The alleged misconduct towards employees included grabbing, kissing, and making comments about physical attributes. The alleged conduct became so well known that, according to Variety, at various times Pixar had minders who were tasked with reining in his impulses. In June 2018, Disney announced that Lasseter was leaving the company at the end of the year, taking a consulting role until then. I didn't know much about this is literally the most I've ever read about it. Like, there's during the whole Me Too movement, it seems like every other guy in Hollywood had allegations, and it was literally impossible to keep up with who did what, and like who do we hate now. Like, apparently it got so bad that like even Aziz is on that list of people we hate now. And it was like I thought he was impossible to hate, but apparently we hate him now because Aziz did something. I'm still not entirely sure what Aziz did, but he also had allegations, and you don't see him anymore. And so like I heard John Lasseter had allegations, and I thought the worst. I'm thinking like he raped somebody, but I'm not saying that. The things it said, grabbing, kissing, and making comments about physical attributes. I'm not saying that's not bad. I'm just saying it's not as bad as I was thinking. Because I was thinking like Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby, because they said that like John Lasseter, we don't like him anymore, and he had to leave the company because of his allegations. And so I'm thinking the worst. Every time I hear somebody has allegations, I automatically think, oh, they're the next Weinstein. Because there's, like I said, there's so many on that list who have allegations, and it's impossible to keep up with who did what. And so, yeah, like, I don't know. Wait, so apparently he's not done. On January 9th, 2019, Lasseter was hired to head Skydance Animation, which will produce animated films with Paramount Animation and Ian Animation. In a statement, Lasseter expressed his gratitude for the opportunity, adding, "I spent the last year away from the industry in deep reflection, learning how my actions unintentionally made my colleagues uncomfortable, which I deeply regret and apologize for. It has been humbling, and I believe that it will make me a better leader." During a meeting at Skydance that same month, Lasseter expressed regret over his actions at Disney and Pixar. Lasseter said he will continue to work every day for the rest of his life to prove that he has grown and learned. An investigation conducted prior to his hiring found that no previous claims of sexual assault, prepositioning, or harassment had been filed against Lasseter, and there was no findings of secret settlements by Disney or Lasseter to any parties asking for a settlement. So what I get from that is, because like what it said he did, it's not that it wasn't bad. It's just, it's not Weinstein bad, and people do grow and change, and I think to a certain extent, some people deserve second chances, and it's just from what I'm hearing here, it sounds like he's at least, like, I don't know if he's legitimately learned from his mistakes, but it sounds like he's working on it, and he regrets what he did, and hopefully he doesn't repeat it, because like I got distracted by something. Like with John Lasseter, he's had such a huge impact on the industry, and I hate, like, because like I said, up until now I didn't know what he did. I just know that he did something that got him fired, or he had to leave Pixar for it. So like I hate, like, this whole time I've been saying his name, I'm thinking, and people are gonna be like, why are you talking about him in a positive light? It's because he had a huge impact. It's part of the story. You can't tell the story of Pixar without talking about John Lasseter. And so that's why I wanted to at least address this. I probably should have looked into it before I started recording, because if it was something really bad, and here I am like, John Lasseter was a pioneer of his time, and it's like, what? It's like, yeah, like Christopher Columbus, he's an inspiration. No, he's not. But I didn't. Yeah, so hopefully he has learned, and hopefully, he won't repeat the mistakes, because, yeah, don't be like that, John Lasseter. Do better. I do want to end this on a positive note. Let's see, what was I talking about? Oh no. Oh, okay. I switched over back to Audio Director, and I thought it wasn't recording for a second. Because the record button flashes solid red, dim, dark red, solid red, dark red, and then when I saw it, it was bright red, which means that, you click it to record, and then I stared at it for a second, and then it went dark red. It's like, oh, it's blinking. Okay, I just saw it at the wrong time. But anyway, on Disney Plus, they do have, they have all, from what I can tell, I haven't seen every Pixar short, but from what I can tell, they have most of them. From what I can tell, they might have all of them. I think my favorite Pixar short has got to be Lava. It's a musical romantic comedy. No, it's a romantic musical. It's a song. It's an 8-minute short, and it's a song about two volcanoes that fall in love, and it sounds weird, but it's actually really good. I like it a lot. I highly recommend it. And then they have a entire Pixar section on Disney Plus, and they've got they've got this series called Pixar in Real Life, where it's basically like Disney pranks, where they do like Pixar pranks in public, and it's kind of hard to explain. Like in one episode, they have like the console from Inside Out, where like the different emotions, and they'll have like actors out in front of it, just like walking around, and then somebody will walk up, and like it's a regular random person will walk up and press the angry button, and then the actors will act mad at each other, and then like the regular person will hit the sad button, and then they'll act sad, and hit the happy button, and they get all happy, and it's really funny. And then there was another one where there was these little kid, these twins. They're little kids. They look like Dash from The Incredibles, but they have like one of them. He like walked up to this lady. Hey, I'm trying to beat my record time. I'm gonna run around the building, and can you time me? And she goes, okay. So she starts timing, and he runs around the corner, and then his twin immediately comes around the other corner, and he's out of breath, and how'd I do? And she goes, that was 5 seconds. And he's like, I didn't beat my record time, or something like that. It was hilarious, because she's like looking around like, what happened? But yeah, like that's a good series, and they have they're really fleshing out the Pixar tab on Disney Plus, because I thought it was just going to be the Pixar movies and the shorts, but there's like a lot of series like Inside Pixar and stuff like that. They have a title page for the Pixar story, but since Netflix still has the rights, it says that they won't actually add it to Disney Plus until November. So, but you can still add it to your watch list, so it'll let you know when it's available, and you can watch it then. Basically, I just highly recommend Disney Plus. There's a lot of good shows. I'm currently watching the Clone Wars for the first time. I've always wanted to. I've been meaning to watch the Clone Wars and Rebels, but I kept forgetting to, or not really forgetting to. I never really had time to. But then I would watch The Mandalorian, and there's so many references to Clone Wars and Rebels, and it's like I don't understand all of these. Then I watch like New Rockstars and stuff talking about the Easter eggs from those shows, and I'm like, oh, well, crap! Now I gotta watch them. So I'm halfway through season 1 of Clone Wars. I'll watch like an episode or two here or there. It's really good. I know everyone says it's really good, and I'm thinking like, okay, it's Star Wars, it's going to be good, but no, it's legitimately good. Like some of the stories in here are like better than the movies. It's like I'm surprised, like legitimately surprised how good this show is. I thought it was like an animated show for kids, but no, like it was by fans for fans. Like because I know there's a lot of fans that say that it was made by fans of Star Wars that wanted to fix the prequels, and I was thinking, oh, yeah, it doesn't take much to fix the sequels, just a couple tweaks and they're fine. But they took what was given to them, instead of like erasing the prequels trilogy. They took what they were given and worked with it and made it. They improved upon it, like they even said they improved Jar Jar. I was like, how can you improve Jar Jar? They should have killed him off in Phantom. But yeah, he's still in there. He's still a klutz, but but he actually has a purpose now. Like he's a klutz, but he gets stuff done, and he's not like the best character, but he's a much better character than he was in the movies. He's still comic relief. Like when he comes on, I still roll my eyes and say, "Oh, it's Jar Jar." But he manages to get stuff done. Like there was an episode where like he tricked the separatists, I think, into thinking that he was a Jedi, and yeah, and he somehow managed to do it. I don't remember the last one I saw, but anyway, I've moved on from Pixar. But anyway, yeah, I'm gonna end this here. Going on longer than I meant to. I'd rather do longer episodes than half-hour episodes, and this is so far, I don't know. I've actually had to stop recording 3 times, so I've currently been recording for 25 minutes on this recording. So total, I don't know how long. It's probably well over an hour. Wow. Okay, I really should stop recording. I just got a message that popped up as I was talking that. Load disk space. You're running out of space on this PC. Manage storage to view usage and free up some space. So I'm going to stop recording, save this, and then I guess delete some files. Anyway, bye.